y'all. This is Kelli King Jackson and Kendra Ross, and welcome to the first episode of Season 2 of This Womanist Work. We are so glad that you're here with us. We bring the perspective of two Gen Xers and former church girls who woke up one day and realized that life was bigger than what Big Mama and the Bible had to say. We're lucky that as we started exploring our identities as Black women, we had each other.
This podcast has invited you into the group chat where we talk about faith, family, community, politics, and pop culture. We don't believe in leaving any Black women behind, so come on in. Sometimes it will just be us, and other episodes we will have other members of our chat group join us. The views shared in this episode represent Kelli and Kendra, not our mamas, partners, church, job, or sponsors.
Just for a little background for those of you who did not listen in on season 1, I am Kelli. I am a third generation preacher's kid. I am a genealogist of my generation. I would say the genealogist of my generation. We have the true genealogist of the family here today, so you can hear from her in a minute. And one of the first in my family to migrate back to the South. I consider myself a progressive Christian, and I have a complicated relationship with the four walls that folks call church. I'm politically active in my community here in Texas, and I love a good old school Black Twitter thread. May it rest in peace.
R.I.P. Black Twitter. Hi, everyone. I'm Kendra. I am the artsy-fartsy one who has juggled multiple careers and always had a little rebellious spirit, but I didn't always know how to express it. Until I could, I would critique a lot of what I experienced at my church and within my family. But in my heart, I still felt obligated to toe the line. Never, no more. Moving back to my hometown and turning 40 lit a match under me that forced me to take my life by the reins in exhilarating new ways, including with the launch of our podcast, This Womanist Work, last season. And I'm so excited to be doing season 2 again with Kelli and with Leatra and Kaya and all our other group chat friends. So y'all, let's catch up the people on what's been going on lately and then introduce our guests. So come on, Kel, anything I should know? What's going on in this current moment? Besides, happy Pride, y'all. Today
Happy Pride.
We are recording this podcast on June 1st, the start of Pride. Happy Pride. Let me start with that.
I mean, I think our group chat has been a lot about dealing with perimenopause lately, and all the complexities that includes. Always a good family drama sitch in there because, why not? Mm-hmm. Lots happening with Gen Xers and pop culture in the news. We won't get into specifics, but lots happening with our age peers, going through a lot publicly. So lots of banter about Kendra and I's experience living in New York in the early 90s.
In the heyday. Yeah.
Whew.
It's scary how much connection we have to all the foolishness going on in the popular culture, but we won't go there. Go ahead, Kel. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think those are some of the top themes, for sure. What about you?
Well, for me, June marks the halfway point of the year and the countdown to really me turning 50 at the end of this year, which I'm very excited about. Although my joints are not excited about it, apparently. The rest of me are excited about it. And so I'm excited about having a good time with my friends. I'm excited about, some trips we're taking this June. I'll be with Kelli like twice or in 3 different cities this month.
Yes.
I'll be with her. I'm not going to tell. Well, it'll be done by the time we out, so y'all won't be able to stalk me. But I'll be in San Francisco with Kelli. I'll be in LA with Kelli. I'll be in Houston seeing Cowboy Carter with Kelli. So I'm very excited about all of the together time we have doing other things besides lamenting the foolishness happening, but really just enjoying each other and enjoying what's music and what the world has to offer.
Same. Awesome.
Cool.
Well, let's get into our first episode of season 2. We are deeply honored to have 2 special guests who are also family members. So I think this is a first for us. So this will feel a little different. How are you feeling about Ken?
I feel great. I love that we're having this conversation today. I know we talked about it but I didn't know, how it was going to come together. And thankfully, we have the best producer in the podcast game who made it happen without us having to even do anything. Because I don't even, Key, did I warn you that you were getting email?
No.
Okay, there you go. See? So she was treated like a normal old guest, like invited by the producer. I didn't even warn her that this was happening. So I'm excited that she said yes.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited that Auntie Deborah said yes as well.
Absolutely. I think it would be great to have you both introduce yourself. We'd love to hear who you are, what generation you represent, and what is your relationship or not with the Black church. And I will kick it to Auntie Deborah.
Hello. So I consider myself Kelli King Jackson's aunt, but we're really second cousins, but who cares? I have a wonderful, wonderful life, and I'm so grateful for it. And I do want to give honor to Spirit because my life is really based on a relationship with Spirit. And I would not be able to get up every day if I did not have that in my heart, because life is hard. And life is a school, and we don't always get A's, but we keep learning and growing. And I feel that that evolution of what I believe in terms of Spirit and God has so changed. And I don't want to get into my whole litany of how many churches I've been to, but a lot. I will talk about that a little later, maybe.
Yeah.
So basically my work is now I have a foundation called Do a Little, which serves women and girls in the areas of health, education, and happiness. And it's based on a quote from Archbishop Desmond Tutu, which is, do your little bit of good wherever you are. It's those little bits put together that will overwhelm our world. And in my whole life, I guess, because I am the daughter of Joe Francis King and Saunders King, and they were a couple of amazing strength, not including the ancestral, just them being my mom white and my dad Black. We grew up with an amazing understanding of how big life is and how racist this country is, but a great faith. And so we've just always believed in doing for others, caring for others, and that pretty much after I worked in my married life in management of a music group, I went basically into my philanthropy. And that's my passion, and I have so many wonderful organizations I work with and so much great work I do with people who are passionate about making life better for everyone. And did I touch on everything?
Oh, and what generation do you represent?
I don't know. I'm old.
Maybe baby boomers?
Baby boomers, right?
Baby boomer.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Although I don't like those labels. I'm sorry.
Say more.
Well, first of all, if I go into my Buddhist learning, which is neither this nor that, we are just in this moment right here, then all labels are gone. And I certainly, as I age, do not want to be thinking about which generation I am in, because I want to be in the present. And right now, this moment, I feel about 20. So I can be that generation for now. But yeah, the whole label thing is exhausting. And if we didn't have a label for everything, what would we be? We would be air, we would be wind, we would be love. What would we be without labels? We could be anything we wanted to be.
I love it. I also think I'll need a hanky for this episode. I'm not prepared. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. All right, Keisha.
All right. So my name is Keisha Cook. I am Kendra's first cousin. Like Kelli, I am a third generation preacher's kid. We were raised in a strong Christian tradition within our family. Unlike Kendra, my life has been very much marked by obedience and compliance. And, that was also a major part of my identity as a Christian. I am a Gen Xer as well. And in terms of my current relationship with the Black church or church in general, I would say that one thing that has been consistent throughout my life has been a desire for authenticity, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a perfect person, but I've always tried to be a genuine and authentic person. I won't get into the details of like my full deconstruction, but I reached a point in my spiritual walk where I recognized that there were things attached to religious tradition that did not align with my personal values, and I was not able to engage or practice from an authentic place. So the beginning of that was just kind of deconstructing those elements, clinging to those things that did align and kind of putting on the back burner those things that didn't. And ultimately, that deconstruction process led me away from religion altogether. And now my life is more focused on self-alignment and striving to live a life that is authentic as authentic as possible.
Yeah.
So when I think about growth or like what I'm striving for, I think about it in the context of who I want to be, how I want people to talk about me or what I want them to say about me when I'm not in the room. And then doing what I can to authentically be that and live that way. And that has, I guess been my current version of spirituality.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I want to go in the deep end of the pool so fast. I was curious, specific for you, Keisha, as a third gen, what has it been like forming your own identity and still maintaining relationship with family and friends and cousins who are still deeply in it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't think that there's any one answer to that, right? Like it really depends on the relationship. The process of deconstruction for me was a very lonely process. It was not something that was guided by any, external influence or whatever. It really just came about, and it was scary and painful, honestly, because, Christianity, my spirituality was very much a part of my identity. I did not know who I was outside of Christianity, right?
Yeah.
So having to define that for myself was, a big part of that. And it was something that I was initially fearful to be honest about with other people because I didn't know anybody else that had gone through that process, that wasn't a believer, that wasn't a Christian. Surprisingly enough, though, when I did find the courage to be honest about where I was, there were a number of people in my family that understood and respected it, had gone through similar things themselves. We just hadn't talked about it openly. So that was very much a relief. That's not to say that there haven't been people, whether it's friendships or familial relationships, that have not been as open and accepting of that to this day continue to try to reconvert me and, call me back into the fold. And I just gently remind them that I'm okay, like I'm good. I'm in a much better place, in terms of, I don't know, like, I feel like there was a lot of me that was stifled by religious dogma that now I'm free to live authentically in. And for me, that's where freedom is. Like that was liberating for me. So I really don't have a desire to go back to who I was before. Not everybody understands that, but there has been no love loss. Like there hasn't been any broken relationships because of it. And I don't expect everybody to understand. Like having grown up in church, like I get it. I know why people feel the way they do. And as long as we're able to be respectful of each other, I've been able to maintain relationships.
I just really wanted to ground the conversation in this idea of womanism, and that the reason that the making space for this conversation is coming from a pure place of womanist theological perspectives, which is rooted in love, rooted in wholeness, rooted in community. So I just wanted to level set with that. But we can provide a time later where we kind of dig deeper into the definition. But I think everybody here is aware enough, and correct me if I'm wrong, but everybody here is aware enough, but I wanted to level set for the audience as well, is that this is not a conversation and it could just happen anywhere. That womanism, at least the way that Kelli and I are defining it, provides a framework to do it that really centers people's lives, lived experiences, their own personal wisdom, and their liberation. And so I think Keisha has already spoken to that in her answer. And so I can't wait to hear from Auntie Deborah about where she shows up in that. And I guess I want to start with the question of, and then maybe Keisha, you can answer this later, but Auntie Deborah, what was your earliest memory of church and how did it shape your view of spirituality?
Thank you. That is such a meaningful question. So my earliest memory of church is Christ Holy Sanctified, which is now Memorial Tabernacle. And my earliest memory is on 58th Street in Oakland. But for some reason, I also remember 7th Street. But I think that's just from doing the research and looking at photos and Grandmother King. I never knew my grandfather, who started the church with my grandmother. So Judge King had already gone on to glory when I was born. And Grandmother King was my idol, really. She taught me to pray. She taught me how to be quiet in the world. She taught me that spirit is everywhere, not just in the church. And yet that church building, the choir marching in every Sunday at 11 in their robes and singing the songs that we all know, that's my foundation. And I felt safe in that church. And it was in Oakland and we lived in San Francisco. So my mom, who came to Holiness Church, or that church, through marrying my dad and embraced it completely, also chose a Lutheran church that was not far from our home. So that when we didn't go to Christ Holy Sanctified, we went to Lutheran church. And my sister and I, Kitson and I, during our teen years, Kitson became much more involved with that church and their programs for teens. And then we also went over to Christ Holy Sanctified on Sundays, which is where Kelli's grandfather, my Uncle U.S., preached. And Aunt Bitsy, her grandmother, was on the piano. And that's just my foundation, the richness of feeling the Holy Spirit. And yet that church was so ecumenical. There was no judgment. You didn't have to go to that church or you were going to go to hell. It just was not the way we believed. The dogma was not present. They wanted people to be saved, for sure. I do remember a few sisters going to the bathroom to drag some teens back into the sanctuary when they were having a moment. But the goal was not what I see so many churches being, that if you don't believe this way, you just are on the wrong path. But through that, I don't know if it's because growing up in San Francisco in the 60s, but I became, actually, Mom did yoga with me. We started doing yoga when I was about 16, mostly for my mother's health because she had some breathing issues, some lung issues, and she wanted to open up her chest. But I also believe this with my whole heart, that God brings to you what you need to see and what you, in your development, in one's spiritual development, there's so much opportunity to be influenced by things you're not yet aware of. So by getting into yoga, I was then open when I met my former spouse. He was looking to find a guru. And so he was influenced in that by another musician. So I had a guru for 10 years. And that was kind of radical in the Christian world, but I would never felt ostracized or condemned. My mom would tell me stories about, people who'd gone off with these gurus and done really stupid things. But she never tried to tell me that I was a sinner or I was against the church. She just prayed for me, as did everyone. And eventually we left that, and I came back to the church, not my family church, but when I left the guru, I went to Assembly of God and did that for a few years, had my 3 children, brought them up in that church for a while, and then I began seeking something more peaceful. And that's when I found unity. And unity is a metaphysical Christianity. So now I'm way off the grid now. I'm over and we meditate 5 minutes during the church service. There's no talk of sin. God is only love and light. And I did that for 20 years.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Looking to take your podcast to the next level? Centering Equity Productions has your back. With our expert team, we specialize in crafting high-quality audio content that captivates your audience and boosts your brand. From concept development to marketing strategies, we handle it all so you can focus on what you love, creating amazing stories. Whether you're a seasoned podcaster or just starting out, we'll help you shine in the crowded podcasting landscape. Let's bring your vision to life and make some noise together. Contact us at info@centeringequityllc.com or www.centeringequityllc.com.
I do not remember the Assemblies of God moment.
All the kids were baptized in Assembly of God.
We have to go back. For those who don't know, my Aunt Deborah wrote a book called Space Between the Stars that you could learn more about her spiritual journey there. But I will say you were probably the first person in my memory that went to a non-Christian church. I remember the guru days and the restaurant with all the, I guess now they would call it vegan food. I don't know what.
Vegetarian.
Vegetarian food, right? So that was my first kind of exposure that I can remember in my memory. And we have very different experiences in church. So I'm fascinated by hearing you speak. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. What about you, Keisha? Kendra, what was the original question?
What was your earliest memory of church and how did it shape your view of spirituality?
So for me, I don't ever remember not being in church. Like I feel like I was literally born in church. So church has always represented family and community for me. Like that was my grounding of, I mean, yes, there was like the religious aspect of it, but my fondest memories of growing up in church all revolve around that community that was established in that building. We also grew up in a family that has been very active in the community and civil rights and all of that. So that was also a part of my experience in the Black church, that, outreach in the community, taking care of other people, that was also foundational in my faith. I think that it wasn't until I left for college and joined another church that I started to get exposed to other aspects of Christianity that at the time seemed appealing, right? It seemed to like align with how I wanted my church experience to be. More specifically, I had ended up joining what is considered a Word of Faith church. So, along the lines of like your Kenneth Copeland, Creflo Dollar,
Good
that kind of,
evangelical church.
yes. And for me, I think I was very much drawn to the charisma of that particular movement, right? Like church was something that I genuinely like enjoyed. It never felt like this is something I have to do kind of thing. It was like, we had a very charismatic pastor, he was funny. Like I looked forward to his sermons, I was in church like 3-4 times a week, that kind of thing. And that experience also was the beginning of my deconstruction process as well. The longer I was in that environment, the more I started waking up to the misalignment, the things that weren't aligning with not only my personal values, but also the Bible and what the Word of God was actually saying. Like coming to the realization that, scriptures were being used out of context and, to push a certain mindset or agenda was very eye-opening for me. So from there, I left there and ended up at a church that focused on expository teaching. Like I had my fill of the whole, charismatic, God speaks directly to me. And this is, I didn't want any man-made interpretation. Just give me the word. That's all I want. Let's study the context. Let's study the history. I don't need your interpretation of it. Let's just get to it. And I absolutely love that church. The people there, just genuinely good people with good hearts, and hearts for people. Very humble. There was no hierarchy in that church. We were all just brothers and sisters in Christ, that kind of thing. And that was definitely my jam in that period of my life. And then that actually was what drove that desire for like truth, right? Like I wanted my walk with God to be authentic. I didn't want it to be based on something that I was taught or told, but I wanted my faith to be my own. And so that was the impetus of me like really studying the Bible, outside of, like daily devotionals or, some kind of other interpretation of the word, but just really diving into, the Bible and what it says, again, just to firm up my own faith. And yeah, then that's when everything just started falling apart. There were, just contradictions and things that just didn't make sense to me. And I needed it to make sense. I needed it to make sense to be in it authentically again. And so after a period of questioning, it really came down to examining my faith and my beliefs objectively, and with the same lens that I examine any other faith practice, right? I had never put my own faith under the microscope that way, but once I did, I realized that what I believed didn't make sense to me. And to continue in that tradition would to be inauthentic to myself. Like I could not pretend to believe something that did not make sense to me. And so, I think from there is where I guess begin to consider myself a secular humanist. I had never heard of the term womanism or womanist until like the last few years, and probably from Kendra. Like that was something that was like off my radar. But then the more I looked into it, then I realized that that's where I ended up. Like that resonated with me, and not because I had heard about it and was seeking that, but that's what made sense. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that's how I ended up here.
I'm loving this conversation, because even though Keisha and I have had conversations with each other, either just one-on-one or with other family members in recent years, we've probably had more open conversations in the past since the pandemic than we have our entire lives, right? Because at the time when she was deep in whatever, the church or whatever, like I would see her for holidays and see the kids and be happy, but didn't have that kind of connection where we have those kind of conversations. And I think just in recent years with things that have happened in life and with the pandemic and just, certain circumstances, we've just been able to open up to have conversations that we probably would have freed ourselves, a long time ago, a lot sooner. So, I mean, I'm grateful that we did it when he did it. We've been able to build that and cultivate a stronger relationship. Because life just be lifing, right? But, or as Auntie Deborah said, and I wrote it down, life is a school and we don't always get A's, but we out here trying, right? So I'm going to carry that one with me. I mean, and I guess I'm just curious, not that you have to have one, but either Auntie Deborah or Keisha, and Auntie Deborah, you've talked about it, but what does spirit look like for you now? Is there a practice, even in secular humanism, which, we know people like Zora Neale Hurston come out of that tradition as well, right? But who was very clear on that, but also was super in tune with spirit, and you can see it in her writing. So what does spirit look like? Is there a practice? Are there rituals? Are there texts? Are there things that you do for yourself in that coming to yourself that ground you and provide space for you?
Well, I have meditated every day since I was 21, and I continue that practice. And sometimes I meditate twice a day in the evening. I don't meditate a long time, like maybe 20 or 30 minutes every morning. And that's my time to commune with spirit. And that is my grounding, and that's what God looks like to me. God is available to everyone. And I loved what Keisha said, because about having other people interpret, how I heard it was having other people interpret who God is to us. Yeah. When we have that breath was put in me when I was born, before I was born. And in my early years, I went to Women in Christ. I studied the Bible. For many, many years, I wanted to follow the way of my family's church. But things didn't align in that same way. And my spirit and my womanist spirit said, well, you have to be in submission to your husband who is not quite living up to God's. Wait a minute. There were a lot of physical realities that made my own belief in what my mother had taught me anyway. My mother was the original feminist in our family, and she didn't, she's not listening to any man tell her who she should be. And yet she so had faith in the God of our church. There's such a dichotomy in trying to find your voice, your spirit, your teacher, your life. And I just feel that is an ongoing journey. And I don't want to tell anyone who they should be, what they should listen to. I've tried that. I used to have that stage in my 30s. I was sending everybody books. Oh, I just read this book. Oh my goodness. That is such an insult to another person's spiritual growth. But I didn't know. I was a baby then. But I do believe that we can get it all by being silent and praying for God to lead us. And I still read Daily Word, which is the Unity little prayer book every morning, gives me a little inspiration. But I have gone through so many teachings, and I don't look at it as I leave something behind because it's bad or it just doesn't serve me anymore. Sometimes just like our Christian experience, it was a fantastic foundation. But when I look at it, this Christian world in America now, I do not use the word Christian because that is not the Christ I believe I was taught or that I believe in. Yeah. That is a nationalistic, racist, patriarchal.
Hot mess.
Yes. Yeah, hot mess. Exactly. However, the essence of that God, that deity that I was taught about, who was so sacrificial and wanted to wash other people's feet, that essence I carry with me. Yeah, it's a growth thing, though, because I love women's ways of knowing. I love women's ways of being. I love our way of knowing intuitively what is right for our families and our world without somebody telling us what that is.
Yeah. I really appreciate that perspective, especially the idea of essentially knowing God for yourself and, not having that dictated to you or interpreted for you. And your experience may not be the same as my experience, and that's okay. I think for me, in terms of spirituality, immediately after my deconstruction, that was something that I actually shied away from. I think that coming out of a religious tradition that I felt to be harmful, because there was a lot of, just, I don't know, the interpretation was not necessarily, beneficial, at least for, people in the congregation, and in a lot of ways harmful. And so I was very adamant about just give me the facts, just give me the real, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't need any fluff or other, experiences or whatever. I just wanted to be grounded in like realness. And so that was something that I actually let go of and lost for a long time, and have just recently begin to explore things like meditation and grounding and connecting to myself, to my environment. But that is a very new thing that I feel like I'm very much a baby in that space. Like, I'm just getting myself like acclimated, but I feel like that is an important part of like our human experience, right? Like, there has to be some element of grounding and connection, in order for us to like live in community with each other. Like, we're not in this experience on an island. And so I think that spiritual component is an important part of our experience. And I'm really appreciative of you, Auntie Deborah, sharing that, because I'm seeing that now.
Yeah. Before we move too far from it, Keisha, I would love to hear, the term deconstruction may be new to some of our audience members. And each of you seem to have deconstructed over a period of time. But if you could, or if you have language, how would you explain to someone what deconstruction is?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Are you a Black woman in middle management looking to elevate your leadership skills in a safe space? Then listen up, because I have something special just for you. Join a coaching group of like-minded women focusing on emotional intelligence, management skills, and leading in white spaces. In our group coaching sessions, you'll gain leadership skills, tools, and strategies. Plus, you'll gain a powerful network of sisters who understand your journey. No more leaning alone. Ready to take the next step? Visit www.iamkelli to learn more and join a cohort. Let's lead together.
That's a very good question. And I don't know if I'm qualified to explain that to someone who doesn't know. I can just speak to my experience, and that's what I have named it. But for me, it was confronting the contradictions, right? Like, I think growing up in church, there was that element of, you're not going to understand everything. It is because I said so, type of mentality that I had just, grown accustomed to. So there were lots of things about like my faith that I had never even confronted or thought critically about. It was just like, this is just what it is, because that's what it is. So for me, deconstruction was really about confronting those contradictions when something didn't make sense, rather than just pushing it to the back burner and say, well, I guess it's not for me to understand, or, it's beyond my understanding. Confronting those things, and all of it was driven by a pursuit of truth. This wasn't like my intention was to disprove, anything or whatever. I just wanted to know the truth. And the truth is not always what we expect it to be. It's not always what we've been taught that it is. And so, but I had positioned myself to be open to truth as opposed to, dogma or what I have always thought, and just being open to, finding what that truth is. So that's what deconstruction was to me. And I don't know if that is like the official definition of it, but yeah, that's what my experience was.
I don't know that there is an official, but what it was for you is official to me.
All right, cool.
Yeah. Auntie Deborah, I don't know if deconstruction was even a term that was popular at the time, but was your experience similar?
It was very similar. I didn't use that terminology, and I was trying to remember right now, why did I stop attending the Assembly of God Church? Because I can't remember. My kids had friends there. But something wasn't resonating. And so I remember very distinctly not attending. And it may have been that the pastor left and there was a new pastor. And I look at pastors, leaders of spiritual organizations, just like I look at business managers. Whoever is managing that particular edifice, that particular congregation, their energy is informing and shifting and changing. And someone who was working in love, serving in love, leaves, and then somebody else comes in, and everything shifts. So that may be why I left that church. But I remember going out because every Sunday morning, I want to be blessed. I want to be blessed every day. But we have this tradition, okay, Sunday morning, now we can go be blessed. But, and I remember going to the track down at Santa Fe High and running around and laying on the bleacher bench and just praying, please send me a church that will nourish my family. And that's when I found unity. But I feel that I consciously looked at what was being taught in the church and how my faith was being called to follow. this particular, and I look at it as dogma, because in reality, how many versions of the Bible are there? Okay, do I read the New American Standard? Do I read the, and then finally, there's this new Bible that I found out about, which is the Aramaic Bible, which does not even have revelations in it. I mean, how many ways can we search? And deconstructing all of that was really a large part of what I did for myself, not knowing that it was called that, but I had to bring it down to something that would nourish my soul. Grandmother King used to say, I don't want to miss a church service because I don't want to miss a blessing. And that has always been my creed. I go to church looking for a blessing. I don't know, that may be kind of rude, but when I walk in those doors, I am expecting a blessing. And so that is my criteria for church.
As you were speaking, I absolutely remember you being Assemblies of God.
I was going to say.
There was a particular contemporary Christian artist that was a friend of yours that now I'm like, you were
right.
in the Assemblies of God.
That's
fascinating. Right. Yeah.
And I wonder if that's why I went, because she invited me. I can't remember now.
Yeah.
God
Funny how we find our ways.
Yes, yep. God works in mysterious ways.
Absolutely. Awesome.
I was going to ask real quick, how, I mean, I know you both, and you don't have to get into specifics because it's different when you start talking about your children, even if they're grown. How has your evolution, spiritual evolution, deconstruction impacted your relationship to your children? And what does that look like?
That was a significant part for me. Because I can't remember which came first, the beginning of the deconstruction or me realizing that I had given birth to queer children. But that was a significant part for me because understanding like love from the perspective or lens of a parent, right? And recognizing that my children are unique individuals, right? And it has never been my desire or intent to mold them to be little versions of me or, anything other than what they are, right? And discovering that at least two of them, are queer. My desire for them was to be able to like live lives authentically. And I was very protective of that in them. I mean, so I was not going to subject them to any church, any religious thought, any family members that was not accepting of who they were. And I think that I had come to that conclusion even before recognizing that in my children, which is why possibly when I did see it, it wasn't something that, I felt any kind of way about. It was just like, it is what it is. And I'm not sure like where that started from. I just knew that it didn't make sense and it didn't feel right to me. That idea that, people that are part of the LGBT community are going to hell or cannot be real Christians or cannot, that did not sit well with me. And so my journey, I guess, through spirituality or, that deconstruction process really, I think it strengthened my relationship with my children because I've been able to parent them and love them from an authentic place. I feel like I'm saying that like so many times, but like that has been the theme for me. Like, I wasn't going to view them or judge them based on what I was supposed to think about them. But I I was able to like love them authentically and authentically accept who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And not make them feel like they had to pretend to be something else for me or for anyone else. And along that line, I've also given them the space to define their own spiritual journeys, right?
Yeah.
So I made the decision not to indoctrinate my children.
Yeah.
And if they end up being, you know, evangelical Christians, if that's where their experience takes them, I'm not going to judge that. If they end up being non-religious, I'm not going to judge that either, because I genuinely believe that spirituality is personal. It's not performative. It's not something that you, that you perform. And I want that to be their experience. I don't want that to be imposed on them. I want them to discover that for themselves. So I think that has led to a lot of mutual respect, and a lot of grace and understanding and acceptance, which I think has strengthened our relationship.
I definitely, want to say that I can see that, even over the past several years, there were times when you weren't always at holidays because and now I'm recognizing why.
Yep.
But I'll say this about you and not to talk about someone who's not here, my other cousin Tara. A lot of times, we came as a trio, right? Like
Yep.
we were age-wise, Tara, Kendra, Keisha, age-wise. And, during the summer times, that was us. It was us three. And I always was kind of like the one that stuck out like a sore thumb. I've always been kind of like a rebel.
Yep.
But I will say, I don't have children of my own, but I will say, for all the talk that we have about me being a little bit more adventurous and free and breaking molds in certain individual walks, I will say that you and Tara have exemplified parenthood in a very liberating way, both of you. I think you underestimate the power of your parenting as you're being your own kind of rebels, and I've watched it and I see it in your children, because your children, for whatever battles they face and what they wrestle with, they all are their own authentic selves, for better or for worse, depending on the day, right?
Right.
So I just wanted to call that out, because that's something I picked up on really early for both of y'all and their children. I was like, oh, these kids know who they are, and a big
free
part
black
of that,
children.
they're free Black children. Absolutely, they had more than y'all had, not just financially, resource wise, but also like in spirituality and personhood and knowing who they are. And I think you shouldn't underestimate that power. I just wanted to put that out there, because I see it.
You touched the mama heart. That was so beautiful, Kendra.
I'm just telling what I call it, like I see it, honey.
And happy Pride to your babies.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess, Auntie Deborah, if you would like to answer that question, we would love to hear from you about how your walk has impacted, shaped, changed your relationship with your children.
Well, thank you, Keisha, for that, because the children are the ones that keep us on our knees, no matter what we believe in. We are praying, and we are wanting the best for them at every moment.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's what I want my children to see in me. I think, my children all have different relationships with the divine. And she doesn't remember going to church. And she has a very interesting memory. However, the other two have sort of this core sense of the King family and that influence of spirit in their lives. And none of my children attends church. I've had them attend with me on different occasions, and especially years ago when I was attending Unity, all of them went to church, but they were younger then. Once they all got to college, they went their own ways, but spirit is all around them and they know it. And they do call on that spirit. And our relationship really, one of my children used a phrase a few weeks ago saying, spiritually bypassing the work, like the psychological work that has to be done. And it's interesting because I thought about that and I thought, well, I don't even believe it's possible to spiritually bypass anything because spirit is everything. But I understood that perspective because when you're having real trauma or real crises in life, we just don't want to put a placebo over that and, that thing that people don't, God's going to work that out. So I loved hearing that, even though I felt it was a little bit of a diss towards the mama. But I loved hearing that because I don't want to do that. Even though I am grounded in that faith that I know no matter how hard this is, and I have had some hard times, I know that God is going to bring me through in that old gospel way. But I don't believe that's the only way.
Yeah.
But I do believe it's important that my children know that my source is spirit. Because I don't want them to get sidetracked to think that the answers are out here with these people who are failing, trying and failing, and with these countries and these governments that are abusing and killing. I don't want them to even think that that is the way.
Yep.
So I just try to stay in my place of believing and loving. And no matter what happens, I want them to know that I love them. And Keisha, you said that so beautifully about your children, no matter who they are. And that these times have changed so beautifully. I mean, in my 7 decades, I have gone from that place of you've got to conform, and that church way that everything, but to now, the last church, because I've been to many churches, the last church I attended was Episcopalian. And right here in Pasadena, it was a beautiful church. Everything was, the language was, God was she. I mean, we were radical. The sign outside was Black Lives Matter. I mean, this was the church of my dreams. And although Episcopalian, the music, I'm not gonna lie, music was a little challenging sometimes. But the intention, and I went there knowing I was going to receive a blessing.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of, I want to be in the world where everybody belongs. I want to be in the spirit world where everybody belongs. I want to be in the real world. And I know that's not the world, but I'm going to keep on with my meditation and my reading and being in community like with you all. Who I want to be around people who want that kind of world.
Yeah. So beautiful.
That is beautiful. And while we have you on that, Auntie Deborah, because you have been here 7 decades, and still looking good while doing it.
Well, a little more than 7 decades. Go ahead.
But what I'm saying is, no matter where we are on our journey, all of us can learn something from you. So what advice would you give like younger Black women who are struggling to reconcile their faith with how their identities are evolving and their worldviews are evolving, including whether it be your own children or just any other young woman?
I would really say, keep seeking and pray for that place where you belong. Because that's one thing that this church I went to, the Episcopalian church, the rector would stand up there and say, many of you have been hurt by the church. You are welcome at this altar to take communion.
Yeah.
And that is a really radical thing to do in this world of everything has to fit what this hierarchy believes. No, you are welcome. You come and you have communion with us. So my prayer for every person, especially younger people who have been harmed by the church, keep seeking. God is everywhere, and God is going to bring you to a place of healing and reconciliation and harmony, because that's who God is.
Yeah.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. Yeah. I think what I appreciate most about what you shared, Auntie Deborah, is that idea that spirituality or even self is not something that has to be static. Like, there's no right way, right? Like, it's okay to continue to evolve. It's okay to continue to learn. It's okay to recognize I was not thinking about this correctly and I'm going to course correct. And, like, all of that is okay. It doesn't have to be exact. It doesn't have to be static. And I think that is probably one of the biggest failings of the modern church. This idea that belief in faith is static. It has to be this. It has to be within these confines. You cannot veer from this. Otherwise, there's condemnation. There's, all of that. And that stifles, I think, the human spirit, because I don't think that we're designed to operate that way. Like, if your approach to life is at any point to feel like you've arrived, I think that you're doing yourself a disservice, because there's always so much more to learn and grow into and evolve into. And if we aren't open to that and embrace that, we really are selling ourselves short.
Yeah.
The doors of the church are open.
They are. It's so beautiful.
No, that's real. That's so real. That's a +1+1. I just, on a personal note, that's a very freeing, both of what y'all both said is very freeing for me, because I recognize in myself, I am a seeker. Like, that's who I am. I'm always seeking. Even when I was like deep in the church growing up, I was always the one like, but wait a minute, why is this like this? Always. I used to drive my mother crazy. Thankfully, though, my mother, she never was like, she just knew that's who I was. So she'd be like, all right, here she go with this. Come back with another text. I'm like, oh, I met these Muslims and they gave me these cassettes and I want to hear what they're talking about. So that's just who I was. But, a lot of times, because a lot of people are not like that, someone who may be insecure about that have made me feel like, oh, she's all over the place. She over here, she's over there. One thing, she's in music, now she's in tech, now she's doing this and she's doing that. But I am like just naturally a seeker, and a lot of times it is, of course, correct. But a lot of times it's just like, I'm in a different season of life, and this is where I'm supposed to be. Yeah. And if we're living really truthful, like Auntie Deborah says, in harmony and in spirit and in love, like, that should be okay. We should all be on our own individual journeys and still be able to find points of connection and harmony, because we're allowing the other person to take their journey and be themselves and to operate in love. So I really appreciate what both of you said, because it just reminded me that I am not perfect, but that, like, my inclination for seeking is not a bad thing inherently, and that I probably will leave this earth still seeking, and that's okay.
Yeah, agree. Yep. Well, I want to say thank you both for ushering us into this season of exploring really the womanism and the ways that Black women are experiencing their spiritual journeys. This is really the focus of this season. So I want to say thank you. You have anchored us in a really beautiful way. Thank you for sharing your stories and your journeys with us. We will have in the show notes some resources to be able to share with folks who want to better understand what deconstruction is and what some of the frameworks and terminology that we talked about today, because we want folks to have the tools, right? So I think Kendra and I think both of you have kind of shared, we didn't always have the language or access to the information on how we wanted to go about it. And so we just kind of found Spirit led us right through it. And for those who want to be more anchored in frameworks and better understand, we want to provide that information for them.
Here.
Can you put in the show notes the daily word, little meditation, the daily meditation, because that has just been a blessing to me.
Yes, ma'am.
For about 40 years.
Yes,
or more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
With that, though, I would love to, sometimes you're in situations like this and in conversations, and you're like, oh, I wish I would have said this last thing. Is there a final thought or a takeaway that either of you would like to share with us before we end the podcast?
I will just say the unity prayer for protection that I pray every morning and I have taught my children. And it really covers a lot of concern and worry that I have about the world and about anything for anyone. It's the light of God surrounds me. The love of God protects me. The light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The power of God protects me. The presence of God watches over me. Wherever I am, God is. And so it is.
And so it is.
Ashe.
Ashe.
That's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
I don't know how you follow that up. But I would like to express an appreciation for not only the invitation to join you here today, but for creating this platform in this space. As I said previously, the process of deconstruction for me was a lonely process. I was the only one that I knew that was going through that, and no one around me understood it. And so to be able to find community with other women who have gone through similar processes, regardless of where our journeys have taken us, I think that the four of us probably have, very different and distinct ideas and beliefs around spirituality. But there's connection in that journey. And there's appreciation and respect for where we are and where we're heading. And so thank you for, creating that space and opening up, at least for me, that community of women that have shared a similar experience and that I can look to as I continue, on this journey, as we're, walking through it together. So those are my final thoughts. Just thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. My takeaway I put in the chat because I didn't want this perimenopausal brain to forget it, which is spirituality is personal, not performative. And as someone who grew up in a very strong theology, theology makes my head hurt. And I tell people, theology is not something I'm going to debate with people and argue with people. And I think this is just a beautiful way to get that point across, right? My spirituality is personal to me, and I'm not going to perform it for anyone. So thank you for the offering today. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say that's a takeaway. I have so many takeaways, but I really like this as I talked about earlier, going into my 50th year. A lot of people tend to live in the past, and some of us live a lot in the future. I'm very forward thinking. I'm always thinking about what's next, and there's a place for that. But I really appreciate Auntie Debbie's pushback on us making her label her generation, where she said, as I age, I don't want to think about what generation I'm from. I want to think about where I am right now, about this present moment. And so I feel like if someone asks me what my spiritual walk is, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I want to be thinking about where I am right now, about this present moment. And I think that is, my meditation practice would probably get better if I could remember that mantra. So thank you for that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you all. This has been such a blessing. I wanted a blessing. This is my church.
Yes. All right.
I
Let
love
the church
it.
say amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you all. Thank you all for kicking off our season in such a powerful way. And thank you to the audience for coming back with us.
Yes.
I'm glad you listened to this episode, but I also hope that you go back and listen to all the episodes in season 1, including our special in-between episode, Mother's Day special. Even though it was a Mother's Day special, I think there's some powerful moments in there that could last, all year round. So please check out This Womanist Work season 1 and continue to listen to us on season 2 and beyond. Thank you.
Thanks,
Be blessed.
y'all.